You reached the front page of it yesterday?
Matters. And I think inexperience is dangerous in this case.
Oh, shit. This is
Mr. Mamdani
53,000.
had a staff of 5 people. You're now going to run a staff of 300,000.
He never says his last name right, by the way.
He's never dealt with the city council. He's never dealt with the Congress. He's never dealt with the state legislature. He's never negotiated with the union. He's never built anything.
Mr. Mamdani, to Mr. Cuomo, I have never had to resign in disgrace. I have never cut Medicaid. I have never stolen hundreds of millions of dollars from the MTA. I have never hounded the 13 women who credibly accused me of sexual harassment. I have never sued for their gynecological records, and I have never done those things because I am not you, Mr. Cuomo. And furthermore, the name is Mamdani, M-A-M-D-A-N-I.
That got 53,000 upvotes. That's crazy. The real Mamala. Mamdani, M-A-M-D-A-N-I. Mamdani. David Dayan of the American Prospect is here, ladies and gentlemen. Longtime supporter of the show and everything I've ever said. Right, David?
Absolutely.
Everything I've ever said
exactly
unquestioningly.
Right. What are you, Trump?
Yeah.
What's with this loyalty?
This is an ambush. Yeah. This is a loyalty pledge. David, I want to start off. I know that we're going to be talking about the big, beautiful bill. I call it Big Booty Bill because his booty cheeks. But before we get to that, what are your thoughts about Zohran Mamdani?
The name is Mamdani, M-A-M-D-A-N-I.
Well, he ran a great race. I happened to be in New York just before the election and watching the media there. Every single ad promoted that New York Times editorial that was essentially an anti-endorsement of Mamdani. Yeah. You know, the fact not only that he beat the big money, that he beat the establishment entrenchment of an Andrew Cuomo, but that he beat the liberal Bible of the New York Times, and that was not a factor in the race. Shows that Democrats are fed up with their leaders, that they want to see a new style of leadership. They want to see a leadership that promises something real, and they're willing to buck the establishment in order to get it. And that's, I think, what we saw.
The name is Mamdani, M-A-M-D-A-N-I.
And now I think the task for Mamdani, presuming he wins the general election, which I think he will, is that he has to go out and deliver.
The name is Mamdani, M-A-M-D-A-N-I.
Like, Zohran is a socialist, but I wouldn't call his platform a socialist one. I think it's like very modest social democratic reforms that he's pushing.
I mean, you know
for.
What's funny? If you go to Erie, Kansas, a little town in Kansas, population about 800 or 900, you'd find a public grocery store. If you go to Akron, Ohio, you'd find free bus service. If you go to North Dakota, you'd find a public bank and a ban on non-compete agreements, which was also part of his platform. You could go all over Red America and find Zohran Mamdani's agenda in place.
Mamdani, M-A-M-D-A-N-I. Mamdani. So let's get to the big, beautiful bill, which I'll admit I haven't hyper focused on too much either. Passed in the House of Representatives, made its way to the Senate. There was a big will they, won't they situation, even though it was obviously smoke and mirrors. And now it is going through a vote-a-rama. For those of you, for the chatters that might not know, could you explain what the process is for this bill to pass? Because it's a little bit unique, right? Because this is not a regular bill.
Yeah. So what we know is that when you're talking about the U.S. Senate, virtually everything legislatively that passes needs 60 votes. And the reason is that any senator can essentially call what is known as a filibuster. It really isn't that anymore because you don't go down to the Senate and talk your ear off. But they call it the filibuster. And the point is that in order to end debate on any bill in the Senate, you need 60 votes. And that makes it a problem for the majority party to get their agenda passed. However, there is sort of this one exception to that rule. And the exception is a process known as budget reconciliation. And it came out of the 1970s, and it was initially conceived to reduce the deficit. But now it's been used basically as this is the one bill a year that we don't need to listen to the minority party, and we can pass this with a majority. And so as soon as Donald Trump got into power and the House and the Senate went by way of the Republicans, they started thinking about, okay, what can we do with this reconciliation process? And can we come up with a bill that can get all of the agenda? We'll stuff all of the agenda into one bill and then pass that. And that'll be our bill for the year, essentially, because we don't have to listen to Democrats. We don't need the votes of Democrats in order to pass. The Trump tax cuts for individuals expire in the end of this year. And one big thing that this bill does is extend the Trump tax cuts and makes them permanent. And the way it makes them permanent is it extends them for 10 years, and then there's an assumed permanence. So you would think, if you're a normal person, that would cost some money. It's not the law now, but if you make it the law for 10 years to pass the Trump tax cuts, that is a major tax cut from where it would otherwise be under current law, because otherwise it would go back to the Obama tax cut, the Obama tax levels, right? So the difference between the Obama tax levels and the Trump tax levels over 10 years is $3.8 trillion. Here's the difference, though. The difference between 2017 and now, the 2017 tax bill, I believe it was called the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act.
Yeah.
Did not have any spending cuts. They basically said, we're going to cut taxes and we're not going to pay for it. We're not going to do any social welfare cutbacks in that bill. But this bill has all the tax cuts. It also has all the populist tax cuts that Trump talked about on the campaign trail, like no tax on tips and no tax on overtime and things like that. But it also has the largest cut to Medicaid in American history. It has the largest cut to food stamps in American history. It changes student loans to make them far more expensive than they are right now. So it really hinders your ability to get an education with a loan. And it rolls back all of the clean energy investments that were done under Biden to such a degree that we can expect much higher electricity rates and probably rolling blackouts because we won't be able to keep up with demand, especially with AI data centers and things like that.
Yeah.
So, and on top of that, if that weren't all enough, there are massive increases to the budget of ICE in this bill that really haven't been talked about a lot. It's a 13 times the increase of the annual budget of ICE is in this bill.
Terrifying.
To do detentions and to do all kinds of policing. So if you, I know you're in LA, I'm in LA, I was down at the protest, so are you. If you want what's happening in LA right now with kidnappings on the streets of people basically racially profiled to be determined by masked gunmen who throw people into vans that they happen to be undocumented, whether they are or not. If you think that was a good thing, it's coming to your town because they're going to have much more money to do that. And then even on top of that, there is another $150 billion increase for the military in this bill. This is a military that has $1 trillion budget, right?
Yeah.
Every year, like clockwork. And for all the arms that are going to other countries, whether it's Ukraine, whether it's Israel, they get another $150 billion in this bill.
Is it true that this bill establishes ICE as the single largest internal policing entity in the United States? Like if
Yes.
implemented? That
Not even close by a wide margin.
Yeah.
Scroll down. Look, there's an actual graph there.
Okay,
That's how much bigger
David,
ICE is.
this is Gestapo, right? Like they are unaccountable. There are already, according like what the ACLU calls constitution-free zones that like Customs and Border Patrol and ICE is supposed to operate in without any sort of interest in receiving a warrant before doing search and seizure in direct violation of the U.S. Constitution. And on top of that, it's not an accident that this administration is using the remigration or deportation or like immigration enforcement as a primary vehicle to push their agenda. The denaturalization process, which will probably also come down the line as the DOJ has announced its plans to prioritize cases to revoke citizenship now.
Yes.
This is exactly the same method that the Nazis used.
And you're essentially taking food and medicine and all sorts of other things away from the most vulnerable people in order to give billionaires tax cuts and to give the private and public Gestapo of this country the ability to wage more terror throughout the population.
Fox, a judge decided to delay Abrego Garcia's release from a jail over deportation concerns home, and there is no place in this country for this man. He needs to be sent home. Dude, so much happening. So much happening. John Fetterman, by the way, remember what we were talking about in terms of like how important it is for the Democratic Party to like demonstrate messaging discipline and attack this incredibly unpopular bill that is a ginormous wealth transfer to the super wealthy. This is what the ogre had to say.
Did you get any clues on the floor about what time this might wrap?
Oh my God! I just want to go home. I've already I've missed our entire trip to the beach. My family's going to be back before we that. So and again, I'm going to vote no. There's no drama. The votes are going to go. In fact, the only interesting votes are going to be on the margin, whether that's Collins or Johnson and those. But all the Democrats, we all know how that's going to go. And I think
Well, there was a little bit of interest in whichever way you went, depending on how hard your brain was actually bricked from the stroke. I wouldn't have, like, I literally thought maybe he would be the one fucking standalone Democrat that accidentally votes in favor of this. He's like, oh, I didn't know. I just wanted to go home. Yeah, can't believe this needs to be said. You are there to oppose them kicking millions of people off their health insurance, you absolute freak. I guess it's cool that he's voting no. That's good. But he's crying about how long this process is taking. This is perhaps the worst possible way of criticizing this bill. Anyway, let's get back to the Mamdani mania.
Globalize the Intifada.
That's not language that I use. The language that I use and the language that I will continue to use to lead this city is that which speaks clearly to my intent, which is an intent grounded in a belief in universal human rights. And ultimately, that's what is the foundation of so much of my politics, the belief that freedom and justice and safety are things that to have meaning have to be applied to all people, and that includes Israelis and Palestinians alike.
But do you actually condemn it? I think that's the question.
What difference does it make? Let's say he says no. Or let's say he says yes. He says yes, you're still going to keep bullying him and be like, well, your supporters say it. Okay. If he says no, you're going to keep bullying him and say, oh, well, don't you think it's a violent thing to say? At a time when everyone in America has seen little children blown up with our taxpayer-funded weapons at a time when we should be spending all this money on fixing our fucking roads, dealing with the homelessness crisis in American cities. Nobody cares. No one cares. It's like, stop. I have the fucking congressperson doing this, by the way. Civilized people in America don't eat like this. If you refuse to adopt Western customs, go back to the third world, says Congressman Brandon Gill. This is some real freak shit, dude. Actually some freak shit. Every single president has eaten with their hands, and the average American is an overweight slob and is proud. Be quiet. Latinx. Hit him with the Latinx. Anybody who eats with their hands like this should be barred from ever being allowed in American politics. Yeah, Bill de Blasio was fucking skewered alive for eating a pizza with a fork. None of this shit matters. Okay, I can't even believe we're entertaining this shit. God,
especially
I hate this.
in light of the horrific attacks that we saw in Washington, D.C. and in Boulder, Colorado, about this moment of anti-Semitism in our country and in our city. And I've heard those fears and I've had those conversations, and ultimately they are part and parcel of why in my campaign I've put forward a commitment to increase funding for anti-hate crime programming by 800%. I don't believe that the role of the mayor is to police speech in the manner especially of that of Donald Trump, who has put one New Yorker in jail who's just returned to his family, Mahmoud Khalil, for that very supposed crime of speech.
This is a great way to fucking restructure the conversation in a way that like appeals to liberals as well. He's basically politely saying, why are you doing the same thing that Trump is doing? To me, a Democrat. Why are you at NBC News, a liberal media outlet, doing the same thing that Donald Trump is doing? Are you not a Democrat? Are you not a liberal? Do you not care about liberal values?
Speech. Ultimately, what I think I need to show is the ability to not only talk about something, but to tackle it and to make clear that there's no room for anti-Semitism in this city. We have to root out that bigotry, and ultimately we do that through the actions, and that is the mayor I will be, one that protects Jewish New Yorkers and lives up to that commitment through the work that I do.
But quickly, for the people who care about the language and who feel really concerned by that phrase, why not just condemn it?
My concern is to start to walk down the line of language and making clear what language I believe is permissible or impermissible takes me into a place similar to that of the president who is looking to do those very kinds of things, putting people in jail for writing an op-ed, putting them in jail for protesting. Ultimately, it's not language that I use. It's language I understand there are concerns about. And what I will do is showcase my vision for the city through my words and my actions.
The name is Mamdani, M-A-M-D-A-N-I.
Mamdani, M-A-M-D-A-N-I. Mamdani.